Okay, April 9th.
Guys, my apologies. The program said you were from a middle school. What university are you from? Were they not amazing? It's now my pleasure to introduce Joshua Kirsh, who is here representing the Mayor's Advisory Commission on Human Relations. Josh is a graduate of Carmel High School and the University of Colorado at Boulder. He is the engineering administrator for the city of Carmel and sits on numerous boards across Carmel. He is also the CEO and founder of the Hoosier Made Toy Company. Josh Kirsh.
There are far more people here than I was counting on. I'm honored, albeit a little surprised, to be asked to speak to you today. Some Jewish people might say, he's not really Jewish. And they have a point. Not your typical or your stereotypical Jew. I believe I fall into this category like a lot of other people who are Jew-ish. Not bar mitzvah. I don't speak Hebrew. I haven't been on a birthright trip to Israel. Heck, I have a difficult time even remembering how to spell Israel. I don't know all the customary do's and don'ts. I'm never quite sure if I should even use the word Jew instead of Jewish because of its derogatory nature. I am tattooed. Despite being kind of a Jewish taboo, I want to be cremated. I don't keep kosher, but I also don't eat shrimp or pork for all the reasons the Talmud tells my people not to. I don't look Jewish, and I have blue eyes. Ready for the big one? Catholic mom. I don't like blintzes or gefilte fish. I have to Google certain Jewish things just for clarification. Routinely, I can't keep my kippah on my head.
Microphone.
I don't make it to temple enough. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer. I am a nice Jewish boy, and I've even been called a mensch. I did go to sleepaway camp with a bunch of other Jewish kids from the Midwest. I do have a crowd-pleasing recipe for matzo ball soup. That's in my head and not from the internet. I do have a mezuzah on my door. I do have a bashki who would say how handsome and smart I was, and then she would proceed to spit at the ground 3 times so as not to curse me. I do understand what Yiddish is, and it's more than a language, by the way. I do have a hole in my family ancestry that will be lost to the Shoah for the rest of time. I do make a point of saying Shabbat Shalom to my son on Fridays with big chunks of challah in hand. I did graduate from college. With direction from the mayor, I helped make the Hanukkah shuk a thing at the Chris Kindle Mart. I always thought I was Ashkenazi until a Nat Geo DNA test told me I was actually more Sephardic. I guess that means I need to learn a whole new recipe for haroset. Speaking of, I do host my family's Passover dinner, and I lead the Haggadah reading. I do rock this awesome beard, sometimes receiving comments like, "You're looking very much like the rabbi." Who doesn't have this great of a beard, by the way? I'm subject to the inevitable member of the tribe type of connections. It's a real thing, by the way. I do have a family history that involves a shtetl in what was once Poland, and then became Lithuania, and then Poland again. It never moved, but the border did. And fortunately, there's an internet reference that acknowledges it, written by my great-grandfather, who was gone long before the internet, but must have documented it somewhere at some times. The description is as follows. There was once a small shtetl named Punsk, beautiful with its mud and rich with its poverty. In this shtetl lived about 70 Jewish families, who over the generation got accustomed to the poor yield of the land and the quiet and warm way of life. They owned nothing out of the ordinary, and the ordinary things they did own were near and dear to their hearts. So most of this list will appear to be an inside joke to some of you, but I reference it for 2 reasons. To you, I appear to be Jewish. To a prototypical Jew, maybe not. But anti-Semitism doesn't make that distinction, due to the aforementioned statement. And as far as the world is concerned, I'm also a Jew, to be hated, slandered, and bigoted against. Jewish people still have fears about other people knowing their heritage. Practically, about putting menorahs or Shabbat candles in the windows of their homes. Or like being in synagogue on high holidays and knowing we are still very much targets. I've had this situation play out where I hear someone say, Jew him. Seen swastikas being drawn and that person not knowing that's offensive to Jewish people. Sometimes anti-Semitism is that obvious, and other times it's more overt, like not getting additional time off for Jewish holidays and having to use mine for Christian holidays, which some would say, but those are secular holidays. These are not secular holidays. It's never really been fashionable to be Jewish, and no one's going to change that today. The first mention of Jews in recorded history translated into foreigners or strangers, and over time, every few decades, for the last several thousand years. I want to repeat that. The first mention of Jews in recorded history translated into foreigners or strangers, and then over time, every few decades, for the next several thousand years, someone has gotten it into the public that hating, removing, or destroying Jewish culture is acceptable. The one thing they wanted to hear me say today was never again. I can't even say it with a straight face. Although it may not be the good Jew that my great-grandfather may have wanted, or that others in past generations had hoped for, I, like any good and decent human being of any faith tradition, simply cannot grasp the horrors of the Holocaust. I know that all of us here today wish we could repeat that often used mantra of never again, but can we honestly believe it? The world has proved many times since World War II that you do not need to be an Adolf Hitler to try to wipe out a culture or a people of faith from the face of a map. Bosnia, Rwanda, parts of today's Middle East. It seems we are always this close to not saying, not never again, but here we go again. I take a step back. Mayor Jim has mentioned before how the Holocaust took place in a civilized culture, advanced thinkers, progressive and forward-leaning. It was not a group of idiots who pulled off the largest systematic extermination of people. It was planners, politicians, lawyers, leaders, doctors, engineers, and everyday people who either stood by or embraced it. Since I was asked to speak, I've noticed a disturbing trend in the news. The LA Times reports that anti-Semitism is at an all-time high in this country, up nearly 60% from the previous year. A new survey released just yesterday in the New York Times states that 31% of Americans and 41% of millennials, ages 18 to 34, don't know what Auschwitz is or was. And only 39% of Americans knew that Hitler was elected democratically. Louis Farrakhan recently declared, Jews are responsible for transgenders in Hollywood. Another article says, that anti-Semitism is the proverbial canary in the coal mine. It's a litmus test of sorts for other forms of accepted degradation, like misogyny, racism, sexism, and extreme nationalism. So if hating Jews is back in, and all these other things are on the table too. Jews are going away and getting to be a smaller group by the generation. And I suppose that's why I'm sought out routinely by friends to ask questions of, or in this case, be here in front of you today. Sometimes these questions, they seem general, inquisitive, and understandable. Others seem silly, like about Jewish Christmas, almost provoking in nature. I very much wanted to say never again, but I fear very real fears. My people are not out of the desert yet. Thank you, Mayor, for continuing this tradition. I'm told that Carmel is one of the last places to still honor my people, and many others lost to the Shoah. This was a great privilege for me today, and I thank you again.